Hello and welcome to a scene for Raid Across New York. Today, Alicia is meeting Danica at Danica's request, and she has set the meeting in a pasta restaurant because they can probably get a table that's got a little bit of privacy and they can eat. So, good on both fronts. It's not like an upscale one, but it's not bad. It's one of those cheap and cheerful places that you can get a giant plate of pasta for not too much. But at the same time you're sure that they've got decent hygiene standards.
Strategically, Danica, having chosen the restaurant, picked a table that was towards the back, away from the kitchen entrance, closer towards the restrooms, and a place where the two of them can converse in some relative ease without having to worry about problems of breaking the veil. When Alicia enters, she'll notice that Danica is wearing sort of the black business suit almost, slacks, nice shoes, a nice jacket over a black blouse, sort of almost fitting that stereotypical Shadow Lord attire. That might be by design. But she sits with a cup of tea and a small salad actually, sitting in front of her.
Alicia is going to be wearing jeans and a vest top because that's pretty much the majority of her wardrobe. She's not really the formal type of person, but then this is not really the formal type of restaurant. It's more where friends go and eat casually than a night out kind of place. You may or may not notice that that Travis is around somewhere. He's been following Alicia a lot lately. He's trying to be discreet at the moment, but you probably might notice that the same person walks past the window every 15 minutes or so.
Danny will probably make mental note, but not make any sort of motion that she really notices. She probably
Alicia is clearly trying not to notice. She's trying very hard not to notice. Not in the I don't want to give it away sense, but the oh my god, Travis, do you have to be so obvious?
Danny will just sit, and as Alicia comes to sit down, she'll simply nod her head towards the child of Gaia.
Hi, you must be Danny, right?
Yes, we met very briefly at the Emerald Spirit the other night.
Oh, yes. Yes. I thought I recognized you. And Alicia will sit down, and when the waiter does end up making their way over, she's going to order a giant bowl of pasta Alfredo. And the bottomless Diet Coke.
Danny will, she doesn't order anything more. The small salad she has in front of her seems to be enough for now. But a certain lack of appetite comes with what she does for a living. She simply just sort of sits back in the booth and places her both hands upon the table, almost intentionally trying to look as non-threatening as possible. But still has this almost... Well, she's a Shadow Lord, so it's possible that someone might think that she's being blatantly calculated. It's hard to say.
So, what did you want to talk to me about?
Well, I'm pretty sure that you probably have an idea of why I called you here.
I can think of 2 or 3. Is it about Jericho?
Um, in part, but not necessarily strictly just him.
Okay.
I'm sure that you're aware of how recently your dealings outside of the Sept have gotten a few people's fur ruffled.
Yes, mostly people that don't know the city and don't know how things work here and like to pick fights with pretty much everybody. I'm sure you know which pack I'm talking about.
You'd be surprised that it's not so much pack specific.
No, I know there's a couple of other people, but I also know that they seem to be the ones that are doing the most stirring.
I wanted to get to know you. I don't know if you know any details about me, but I am, like you, born under a half moon.
Cool, we could use some more of those. I've kind of had to figure a lot of it out myself, but I think I'm doing quite well.
One thing I've always prided myself on is that I don't try to pass judgment until after I get all the facts. And even with people hooting and hollering and just generally rebel rousing or trying to stir the pot, there's always truth behind what they go after. There's a reason people have certain suspicions and certain prejudices.
This is true, but they, honestly, I can't even tell them half the stuff. Because some of it we're supposed to not talk about. According to Chases the Storm. And you can ask him if you want, but he told me to keep things quiet about certain things. So they can question me all they like, but they don't know half of the story because I can't tell them half of the story, and they won't listen to the other half.
What is the other half of the story?
Okay, well, people seem to think that I like vampires, and I don't. I just don't kill them on sight, and have met some that have been useful. To be honest, I haven't seen one in months. But the same reason why the Red Talon Howls the Song came to talk to me rather than to anyone else in the Sept to pass information to the Sept is the same reason why I'm more likely to end up being able to contact the vampires if we want information from them, because I actually listen. And like you said, if you listen, you can try and understand things better rather than jumping to conclusions. Now, don't get me wrong, I have fought vampires before, and in fact, a few months ago, I gave Aaron the blood that he needed to track down a very, very nasty vampire and some of his friends, and the only reason I wasn't there alongside him to fight them was because have you seen how fast the Silent Striders can run? It is ridiculous. So it's not that I am on their side, it's that some of them have done things that have helped me, that have helped the Sept, and that I'm well aware that the main thing that keeps them from messing with us is knowing how badly we could mess with them if we needed to. And I don't think that getting rid of relatively well-behaved vampires is worth the time and effort and damage that could happen to the cairn during the battle, when we've got things like black spiral dancers to worry about.
Alicia, have you ever lost anybody?
Define lost.
Has anybody close to you ever passed away?
Yes and no. If you're then going to say, has anyone passed away from supernatural means? Not that I know of. But I have lost people, yes.
There's a fair few people within our collective that have pasts that deal with all manner of tragedy. It almost comes with the territory for most of us, not necessarily all of us. So certain prejudices and certain pains have a certain amount of weight behind it.
I
Some
know.
of it is brought into almost our upbringing.
I
Now,
understand that, and I don't expect them to get on with them. And like I said, I haven't seen any in months. It's not really. It's just all blown out of proportion when it comes to them. Because so far, I have met exactly 5. The first one I actually met about 2 years before my first change. And it wasn't until after my change that I knew what he was. Not what I say met. Ran across occasionally, saw in the same kind of areas, and he always treated everything with what I would consider appropriate respect. He didn't go trashing the trees, he didn't go dropping litter, he didn't go attacking people that I saw. So it's hard to judge them all by a minority, because if you were going to judge everyone by a minority that is running, I mean, Halloween, there was one running around with a machete attacking people, and I fought that guy. But if you were to judge all Garu by the black spiral dancers, that wouldn't be fair.
well, by that same token, not all Garu come off as worm-tainted.
This is true.
There's certain tenets within the litany that prevent us from falling to that level of defilement. Whereas, from all sources, it seems that vampires have to break this tenet just simply to stay alive.
If you're talking about feeding off humans, I'm not sure. Perhaps they can feed off animals, I really don't know. But Anansi drank blood.
A what?
Anansi. The spider changelings. The no, not changelings. Shifters. The like Garu but for spiders. I met one, and she drinks blood. I don't know where she's gotten to, but Alicia shrugs.
Well, for my
I'm not.
part, I can tell you that my family's history goes far enough back that those that grow up within my bloodline, we know about what happened in our homeland, where we ancestrally came from. Shadow Lords have no love for vampires, and in all honesty, I think that you're unnecessarily putting yourself and the sept at risk by simply comporting with them. You don't know their motivations, and from
Like
all
I
accounts
said,
that I've heard, they can be just as double dealing and backstabbing as any Shadow Lord.
okay, and I know that it's a risk. I know that it is a risk. But, like I said, I haven't seen any in months. The rare time when I do see them, it's usually, well, so far, it's only been when we're dealing with something that both they and the Sept want dealt with. I mean, when we were trying to fight the black spiral dancer down in the sewers, you weren't here yet back then, but down in the sewers there is or was or something giant lab full of mutants and things that the black spiral dancers had made out of I think out of Garu and Kinfolk for the most part, but it's quite hard to tell because weird mutant things. And while we were down there, this vampire pops out of nowhere and tries to help. Admittedly, it wasn't much use, but he tried. And considering he's like this tiny vampire with a gun, and there's 3 Garu attacking this thing, he must have known that his best bet was probably to peg it, but he still tried to help.
Well, there's an old saying, make a friend now so they don't think you're an enemy later.
It's possible, and I'm not saying we should trust them. I really am not. I'm not saying we should help them. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is we have much bigger problems, and if they can provide help or information sometimes, then why not let them? But honestly, like I said, I haven't seen one in months, and I assume they're around somewhere, but we have much, much bigger problems.
True. One of them being the other part of the conversation I wanted to have with you, and that's Jericho.
Well, Mother Larissa is fine with Jericho.
For now. And she sort of sits forward and takes a sip out of her tea. He walks a very fine line, I would expect. Dealing with things that could lead him down a dark path. And it seems, with his knowledge, if he were to be corrupted, he would be a major liability, especially with the powers that he says that he has.
Well, I rather think that he is heading more away from that kind of stuff than towards it. Because having spoken with him, it sounds... Obviously, he didn't want to go into too much detail on some things, but it sounds like he's had a bit of a dark past, and he's working to become a better person. And, you know, at Christmas, we actually rescued some flying reindeer. I'm not joking. And, so, you know, he's... And apparently he's made it onto the nice list now, so, you know, that's a good sign. And Mother Larissa likes him because she met him, and she seems to approve. And like I said, I can't tell you half the story, which is, considering I told you all the stuff about the vampires, it's more than half of the story about the mages. But I have seen him. Well, in fact, he has fought a Bane right next to me. He, in fact, given the behaviour of certain people lately, I trust him more than some of the other Garou. He isn't the one waving a gun around near kinfolk.
Hmm.
He isn't the one who seems to be picking fights with people in the set rather than with any of the actual threats to the set.
Well, such is the nature of the Garou,
I know.
especially the full moons.
I know, and I'm trying to be as patient with them as possible, but honestly, they're new here, they're Cleaths, and I'm a Fosturn who has lived here since I was awakened. Before I was awake, since I was awakened, since my first change. Before my first change.
Hmm. You are
And
all those things. I'm not going to deny that. But at the same time, you're also a Fostern who's lived here for quite a while, who has shown, whether it was merited or not, questionable judgment. And this is simply coming from someone who's trying to be as pragmatic about the situation as possible, trying to weigh
that's,
both sides on this one.
no,
And
I
well,
agree. And if they were just questioning, that would be fine. But putting a gun to people's kneecaps is not just questioning.
interrogation isn't pleasant, Alicia, and you're
I
naive
know,
to think
but it's
that
not their job. They should have contacted the warden.
when you have to deal with what you have at the time,
Then they
Alicia,
just hold him until the warden is free to arrive. They let Blitzkrieg know, and they wait for him to arrive for him to decide what to do. It's fairly simple.
the situation with Jericho was dealt with swiftly and cleanly, and no harm befell him. If he had remained longer in our custody, do you think that the chances of him being harmed would have increased or decreased?
It very much depends on who was in custody of him.
Let's say with the assembled cast that was there that evening.
If they were reasonable enough that they would actually have contacted the warden rather than taking matters into their own hands, they'd have been reasonable enough to look after him. The thing is, they aren't that reasonable.
So you've kind of created a paradox there with your statement.
Not exactly.
Even if they
Because
had...
what I'm saying is that they should be responsible enough and be capable of looking after their own rage. They should. The fact that they are not is worrying.
Owen and Johnny, I can see being reasonable enough. Too fresh, he needs to get it under control, but it might be something that's going to take time for him to work on. Not all of us can keep the fire in check. Some of us have a raging inferno going on inside of us. But, regardless to say, I'm of the opinion that if Jericho had been in our custody for any longer than he had, bad things would have happened to him.
And if Contemplates the Mercy hadn't been around, do you think they would have let him go?
It's hard to say. If they would have listened to someone with authority like myself, as far as the litany is concerned, maybe. But there were 3 of them and only 1 of me to deal with the situation. I could have been overruled by simply force at arms. But, all the same, if you want my honest opinion of the situation, Alicia,
Go ahead. Like I said, part of the problem is I can't tell them half of the reasons why I do the things I do.
I think you're well-meaning. I think you fit a certain model of what it means to be a child of Gaia, at least everything that I've heard about them. But at the same time, I think that you're also foolishly naive.
Perhaps.
And
But as I said, you don't know the benefits that I've got from these people. And I
you've been
can't tell
lucky.
you.
I do think you've been lucky.
Perhaps. Perhaps I've been lucky, perhaps not. But I am taking these risks for the Sept, not against it. And
That,
I have done a lot for this Sept.
I don't think anybody's trying to refute that, but you said the key word there was risks. You can only risk things, you can only gamble so many times before finally the dice don't roll in your favor, in a manner of speaking.
Okay? But every time we go out to face a Bane, that's a risk.
True.
Every time that we try and do pretty much anything, it is a risk. It's just a case of how large the risk is and what the possible rewards are. And what the possible loss is, what the possible danger is. And these risks, okay, I will not try and spend any time with vampires. I'm not planning on trying to spend any time with vampires. If they contact me, I will pass the message along, and people can trust it or not trust it as they choose to do fit, but at least they have the information and can make that decision. Other than that, the main things that I deal with, other than Garu, is mages. And anyone that wants to point a finger at me and say you shouldn't be dealing with mages should look at their dealings with the changelings. Because seriously, the changelings, I don't trust them. And with good reason.
One thing I've always found by involving outsiders is that in the short term, it might prove useful, but in the long term, it usually ends up getting them killed. Or, in your case, it could give them an advantage against us, and when they decide to press it out of necessity, desire, whatever the reason may be, they have you as an in. They have you as leverage in whatever capacity you could possibly serve them. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that is the risk that you put yourself at, and by proxy, the rest of us at. And while
Well,
there might be
like I
those...
said, I can't tell you half the story. I can't tell you the reasons why I am more sure that they won't harm the Sept than I am that many of the other Garu that I have met won't harm the Sept.
You said that you can't tell me the story on the grounds that someone told you not to.
Chases the storm. He's the right master.
Very well. But I would like to point out that as a philodox, it's my duty to be as adjudicating as possible. Fair, unbiased. That's why I've met you here instead of aiding others and just simply bringing you into custody, as they might put it.
Well, considering I am under orders from an Adran that the next time I meet certain others, he is to be there, I don't think it would go well for them if they tried. I told you, I can't tell you the story. The warden knows about it, Mother Larissa knows about it, Hardlight knew about it, but apparently seems to think that something is going on anyway. I don't know. And Chases the Storm knows about it. If they know about it, they know the details of what is going on, and they are the elders of the Sept.
Danny sits back and seems to contemplate for a bit. Well, with your veil of secrecy, you're not going to win anyone over. I'll tell you that much.
I know. But I shouldn't have to. The point is, I have earned the respect and trust that I have in this Sept from people that actually know anything about me. And I'm sure that as I'm a Foston and they are Cleats, they should shut up. I'm pretty sure that's okay, it's a paraphrasing, but it's right there in the litany.
Depends on how you interpret the litany, and that's a very case-by-case basis.
This is true. I'm just saying that the people who need to know, know. The people who do not need to know, do not know. And if they're just going to complain the entire time based on half a story and thinking that they should know, then clearly it is evidence that they shouldn't.
At the same time, we're also looking at potentially fracturing the Sept, putting the need-to-knows against the do-not-need-to-knows. And without trust, the Sept will fall apart.
Okay, so that decision as to whether they should be told is not my decision. It's not down to me.
I'm well aware of that. It's just an observation.
It really is, and I can understand that, but I also know why it is being kept quiet. Because not long ago, there was someone attacking Garu inside the Sept. If too many people know about something, it increases the likelihood of someone who shouldn't know about it finding out about it.
The Sept is far more divided than it should be.
It really is. I definitely agree with you there. But
your camp is not helping. I'm just noticing that. You might say that it's the Elder's prerogative. It is, and it's not my place to question it. At least not openly. But I will tell you that what I see your secrets doing, what I see your division doing, only will bring bad things to a Sept.
Oh, I agree. But the thing is, I can't change their attitude about me. There's nothing I can do about that. It's down to them whether they're going to listen to people who actually know all the facts and say, right, well, we know this and we know why this is happening, and that's okay, or they won't listen to them. But really, like I said, there is very little I can do about it. All I can do is carry on doing what I am doing for the set, and hope that these new people won't just tear the whole thing apart. I know you're saying it's partly our fault as well, but and I can see how the temper's getting up is a bit on both sides. But honestly, I'm just carrying on doing what I need to do to help this sept. The same thing that I have been doing for months.
Danny sort of adjusts herself and finishes off the last bit of tea in her cup as she pulls her bag over her lap and pulls out a few very crisp $20 bills and places them onto the table. Alicia, I'm only going to tell you what I think. It's up to you. But sometimes the bravest moves in our history, within our entire society, have come from those that defied the orders of those above them. Not saying that that's what you should do, but I see a storm on the horizon. I see the orders of those in high-ranking positions possibly tearing everything apart simply because they feel that this is a secret that needs to be kept.
The thing is, to an extent, I agree with them. As much as I agree with you that this is an issue of contention, I also know why they want it kept secret, and I agree it is a very good reason to keep it secret. So I'm not sure, honestly, what I should do. And so if you're not sure, you can always tell someone something later. You can't untell them something.
Danny stands up as she slips the bag on her shoulder and then looks down at Alicia. Trust is what keeps people together. And without it, there's really not much that can be done.
And
The paradoxical thing about trust is that it's a two-way street. I'm sure you have your reasons, and the elders have their reasons for keeping it secret, but this veil of secrecy that you're holding, I can't trust you as far as I could throw you.
fine, that's up to you. But honestly, given the events of the last few weeks, do you think that I can trust half the sept?
As I see it right now, the whole reason that you're in the predicament that you're in is a lack of trust. And without it going both ways, it's never going to get any better. But that's just
true,
me.
but it's also a lack of trust in the elders of this sept. It's not a one-way thing. It started because of their lack of trust in the elders. And it's continued because of the elders. Well, no, it's not even continued because of the elders' lack of trust in them. It's continued because of their continued lack of trust in the elders of the sept. Because if they trusted them, then they would know that they don't need to know what I'm up to with the mages. Do they have any interaction with the mages? Not really.
Well, all I can say, Alicia, the painted men don't have any secrets that they're keeping from anybody.
that's fine. But it's not really their business what I get up to for the sept. And it's not
Yeah.
really my business what they get up to for the sept. Unless they step on my business.
That's quite possibly true, Alicia, but I've sat here and I've talked with you and I've formulated an opinion on you. And all I can really say is that you make a lot of justification, and I would suspect that you feel the need to. Am I just reading too much into that? I'm not sure. Anyway, I don't think you're necessarily a huge gaping threat to the sept itself, but these secrets are. And if you choose to keep them, the consequences that come from this division, that's all going to be on your and the Elder's head, if it comes to that. But
look,
I
I honestly don't know about whether it is better to tell this secret or not to tell this secret. I don't know. Because I can think of bad consequences for both versions. Very bad consequences.
Well,
and
Alicia, that's sort of the whole thing. You have to make your judgment call, and when you make that judgment call, you have to live with the consequences.
Perhaps.
That's a universal truth.
Perhaps. But the elders of this sept,
I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
They know the Garu better than I do. I know the situation, certainly, but I don't know the rest of the sept as well as they do. I don't know Garu society as well as they do. They're elders. They have experienced a lot more than I have. And if I'm not sure and they're saying do this thing, then I'm going to go with what they tell me to do because I trust them more than I trust the people going, oh, you should tell everybody.
Danica just simply smiles and nods at her.
And I don't want to be offensive by that. It's just I don't know you. And I understand why you don't trust me. And I actually do trust you to an extent. I trust you that you are giving me the best advice based on what you know, but you don't know half of it. So I can't use that, and I can't tell you it to get a better version. So, you know, it's essentially I am stuck in a position where as much as I want to trust the rest of the sept, time and again they have shown me I can't. At least not everyone. And so, you know, I'm just going to go with it's not my secret to keep. I found it and I look after it, but the secret, that is all on Chases the Storm.
Danny sort of steps aside as the waiter brings Alicia her bowl of pasta. It's nice meeting you, Alicia.
It was nice meeting you too. I do appreciate your advice, believe me. It's just not that simple.
Enjoy your pasta.
Thank you.
Danny smiles pleasantly and then makes her way out.
And there the scene will end.